Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome
Good
to the
afternoon.
May 3rd Thursday CARES webinar. We're really happy to have you here. Today's topic is going to be building the CPS-AD workforce with my colleague Haley Sherlock and myself. We're going to have a really fun time telling you how to apply for CARES and how to write letters for the people who you want to get into the CARES Academy. So we're excited to have you here. Like I said, my name is Alvin Cotton. I'm the database coordinator for the Georgia Council, but more importantly, I'm a person in long-term recovery myself. What that means is I haven't felt the need to take a drink to deal with my anxiety, depression, loneliness, isolation, or legal problems since September 13th, 2001. That's 22 and a half years. Yay for me. I know there's a mystery about when people decide they're going to do something different. And I know there was for me. And I know that the very best person to have been sitting across from me back then when I was in the middle of that mystery would have been you, because you're the one whose very presence says that recovery is real, recovery is possible, recovery is the expectation. And that's why we want to grow the peer workforce here in Georgia. And I'm going to get us started. So this webinar, as it says here, is designed for peers who will be applying for CARES and to help current CARES and community members support peers as they pursue CARES and CPS-AD certifications. This will be an interactive webinar, and we are going to ask for your engagement and participation. Keep your microphone on mute if you're not speaking, please. As a host, I will mute people as needed. No driving or grocery store shopping or anything like that. You know, that will help you focus if you want to turn off any apps or anything like that. Everyone who remains until the end of the webinar will get 1.5 CEUs, and you'll receive a certificate from me, Alvin Cotton, that will probably go out next week. So anyone who shows up more than 15 minutes later has to step away. You're welcome to stay for the webinar, but you may not get credit. We'll figure all that out when we're done. Please search for the name Alvin in your inbox. That's how you will be able to find the certificate. If you want to make sure that the right name is on your certificate, you can change it now. Sometimes when you log in under somebody else's login, it has the wrong name there, and we might have trouble making sure you get credit for it. Please include pronouns on your name if you want us to be sure to be able to address you properly. And now let's get rolling. I am going to launch a poll if it will let me. Hang on just a second. There we go. Haley, you'll let me know if you can see that.
Yep, I see it over here.
There we go. So if everyone would respond, let us know who's here. Is it CPS, AD, or CARES? Are you aspiring to become a CARES? Are you a clinician, a recovery ally, or other? Haley, can you see if people are responding?
They are. We're at about 71% right now. So we got a few people who haven't yet responded. So we'll give them a few more seconds.
All right. It is not showing me the responses. So if you can get a chance to snap a picture of that for me, that would be great. I am going to end the poll right there, I think. We got 41 people on here, so that's awesome. And I'm going to share the results. Can y'all see that?
Everyone see it?
All right. You may have to end it for me, Haley. No, I see how to do it, I think.
Oh.
Can you, is it ended?
Nope. All right. I'm going to exit out of it. There we go.
All right. So I've introduced myself. I'm going to ask my colleague, Haley Sherlock, my co-presenter today, to introduce herself.
Well, good evening, everybody. And thank you all so much for joining us tonight to go over some pretty important information, I think. But anyway, it's about that. As Al said, I'm Haley Sherlock, and I'm the CARES Program Team Lead at Georgia Council for Recovery. But most importantly, I'm a woman in long-term recovery, and what that means to me is that it's been a little over 4.5 years since I had the need to escape my reality using any kind of substance at all. And so because of that, I get to be a pretty present mom for my 16-year-old son. I get to be employable. I get to have connections that give me meaning in my life all throughout the state of Georgia and in various other states. And I choose to speak out about recovery because I remember a time where shame and stigma drowned out my own voice. And That is not the case today. It is because of my own lived experience that I know I bring value to my community. And when I'm able to share my lived experience, that other people are able to find the recovery services that they need to get and stay well. And so, thank you all for being here. And without further ado, we'll get started on our presentation. And so, as Al had said already, tonight we're going to be discussing supporting peers, building the CPS-AD workforce. And the reason we decided to do this as a webinar was because we have a lot of cares in our community who write letters, and allies for recovery that write letters for people who are aspiring to become a cares. And the letters always kind of sometimes need critiquing. And so we wanted to be able to provide you all with the up-to-date, accurate information on the scoring criteria for the writing samples and the reference letters, and also go over the mock interview stuff with you. And so, Al, do you want to go ahead and go over the agenda with them really quick?
Yeah, that'll be fine. So we're going to start out with some of the stuff that we do in a ROSC workshops to give you a little context. We're going to talk about Georgia's definition of recovery. We're going to discuss the mission of CARES. Be a good reminder, because I always need reminding about what the CARES mission is. We're going to talk about what peer recovery coaches do and the core competencies that you learn when you attend the CARES Academy. Then we'll go into applying for CARES. We'll discuss the values that we look for in the letters that you present. We will discuss how we grade the writing samples and the reference letters, and then we'll go over the interview process so you can see how the interview process works as well. We're going to save time, I hope, at the end for questions as well. You're welcome to put questions in the chat. We're probably not going to read them until the end because most of them will be answered, we think, as the presentation goes on. But if there's anything you want to know, put it in the chat, and then there will be a record of it that we'll come back to. All right, so Georgia's definition of recovery. I am going to get someone to read this, please. Would anyone like to raise their hand, and I'll make sure and go ahead and read this slide for us? Cecilia.
Okay, thank you. Jordan's definition of recovery. Recovery is a deeply personal, unique, and self-determined journey through which an individual strives to reach his or her full potential. Persons in recovery improve their health and wellness by taking responsibility and pursuing a fulfilling and contributing life while embracing the difficulties one has faced.
Thank you. There's a little bit more to it, but I want to tell you how we got to that. This was what we came up with. Neil Campbell left the Department of Juvenile Justice to work for the CARES organization, wanted to create a training like the one the Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network had for peers with mental health issues to be able to use lived experience to work with other people and to have their employer bill Medicaid for their services. So she and George Broad went around the state, and we went to all the regions of the DBHDD and had listening sessions in town halls where people in Georgia told us what their definition of recovery was. And this is what the state came up with. And I'll tell you what I like about this. I like the idea that they want us to get to our full potential and that we are taking responsibility and pursuing a fulfilling and contributing life while embracing the difficulties we faced. So this is both person-centered and strength-based. And I think that's what's really important about this definition and about the stuff that we do for CARES. So we'll go to the second part. Will someone raise your hand and read these three things? Audrey.
Hello. Recovery is not a gift from any system. Recovery is nurtured by relationships and environments that provide hope, empowerment, choices, and opportunities. Recovery belongs to the person. It is a right and it is the responsibility of us all.
And so this is the second part of it. What I really like about this one is that recovery is not a gift from any system. We will often hear people talk about how it was a gift from God or a gift from the 12-step program or AA. or a gift from time spent in prison in the carceral system. I know that all of those things, for me, it was the legal system that helped me turn toward recovery. But it wasn't a gift. I worked really hard for it. I know that it was really important for me to put in the time, to make my way to meetings, to do what I needed to do to start changing what I was doing in my life. And so I really appreciate this part of this bullet. I also like that recovery is a right and is the responsibility for all of us. As CARES, I think we understand especially that it's our responsibility to help people establish recovery. It's not our responsibility to do it, it's our responsibility to help. And I really like that. And we all know that recovery is nurtured by relationships, the environments that provide hope and empowerment, choices and opportunities. I really think this is a great definition, and it helps us remember what we're working with when we're CARES. So.
All right, and so here's the CARES mission. How many of you, show of hands, know the CARES mission by heart? All right, maybe not just me. I don't know. I can't
There's
see
Stephanie.
everybody. Okay. Well, I didn't necessarily put this in here for those who are already CARES to need a refresher. I put this on here because I feel like it's really important for people who are wanting to become a CARES to know what our mission is, so that they can go ahead and start feeding that spirit of peer support. And so when you're helping them apply for CARES and telling them about what CARES is, I wanted you to be able to have something tangible to show them that this is the CARES mission, which is to promote long-term recovery from substance use disorder by providing experienced peer support. And so, you know, we want to empower these people to recovery and live meaningful and rewarding lives by supporting them in whatever pathway they choose or decisions they make, regardless of how we think or feel about it. And I don't know about y'all, but when I first encountered a few people and talking to them about CARES, it kind of was like a foreign subject to them. It was hard for them to grasp. And so sharing with them what our mission is and kind of breaking it down to them that way about, you know, their path, and we're there to support that, it was a little bit easier for people to kind of reconcile with. And so I just wanted to, that's why this slide is here. All right, and so you can also share with the peers who you're going to be supporting to become a CARES that once they become a peer recovery coach, they will be able to do these things here, which kind of summarize the grand scale of what we all do as peer recovery coaches. So they'll be able to be a personal guide and mentor for individuals seeking to achieve or sustain long-term recovery from addiction, regardless of pathway to recovery. They'll be a connector, which is instrumental to recovery support services, and including housing, employment, and other professional and non-professional services. And you could also act as a liaison, which is to formal and informal community supports, resources, and recovery activities. And so when you're given the opportunity to be a personal guide and mentor, I think about like sharing resources of different types of meetings, whether it be yogas, outdoor excursions, faith-based recovery practices, treatment, detox, MAC clinics, harm reduction services. We want to ensure that everyone that we're giving services to knows what is available to them, so that they can choose what's best for them in that time in their recovery. And then as a connector, we want to allow them to know what services we're aware of, what resources we have. And when we're listening to them, we're able to hear what we think that may need, and lay out different options for them to choose. And then with a liaison, I think about somebody who does introductions, you know, whether it's a warm handoff or you're actually going to these informal and formal community supports with them, helping them get integrated back into the community.
Haley, can I say just a little bit about these?
Sure.
I just want to say I especially like the first one because I realized when I became a CARES that before I became a CARES, the only way you would have found me would have been to go to an AA meeting and ask me to sponsor you. And CARES made me so much more useful and helpful to people. I wasn't hiding away. You know, my recovery was much bigger and louder, and I really appreciate that. About the second one, this is the stuff that happens at RCOs a lot, that usually have all of this information about how to connect to resources there. And I know that Haley created her own a notebook of resources around her when she was applying to the CARES Academy, and made sure that she knew what resources were available nearby. And for the last one, this is what relies on what you know about your local community. And when I started being a peer in Birmingham, I didn't know anything about this. I had to learn about all the fellowships that were available and which ones were strong, where they were located. So this is what is the key. This is where your personal recovery on the ground where you live is really important. So thank you.
So. And so the core competencies that come in with CARES Academy. So when working with peers in the community who are interested in becoming CARES, you can tell them these are the core CARES core competencies. They'll learn how to do recovery groups, individual recovery check-ins, recovery advocacy for the self, for yourself, for peers, and at a systematic level. And so, you know, y'all know this information, or at least most of y'all do, because y'all have already been through CARES and y'all have learned all about the motivational interviewing, and that's how, you know, and then the pink ORC and the individual recovery check-ins, and how to do your elevator speeches and all that good stuff. And so just being able to share this information with them to help encourage them and to let them know, like, this is what you'll walk away from, and so much more. A whole community of people who are going to love you and embrace you and walk this journey out with you.
Can I say something about those as well, just briefly?
Sure. Well,
I just wanted to say, just a reminder that we have all recovery groups at 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. every day that are sponsored by the Georgia Council. So if you need a refresher about what those are like, that would be a great thing to look at. For individual recovery check-ins, I just want to say, Pink, practice intentionally not knowing. It's a really great thing to remember everywhere I go, not just when I'm working with someone. And the advocacy part, you know, advocacy in the system with ARAD and with the upcoming Georgia Recovers bus tour that we're going to have in September. You know, when you're advocating for peers, you do what you can to help them. And when you're advocating for yourself and for the peer profession, that's when you advocate to make sure that this is a good job that people will be able to have going forward.
awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and so this is my favorite part. So this is the criteria to apply for the CARES Academy. So the criteria straight across the board is that you have to have a high school diploma or a GED. You must have 2 years of continuous abstinent recovery, and that includes medications, assisted treatment for opioid use, alcohol use disorder, and you must be a Georgia resident. Sometimes there has been other circumstances. However, right now the DBHTD has tasked us to expand the peer workforce in Georgia. So we are currently only accepting applicants from Georgia residents. So once they meet that criteria, we always highly encourage them that they attend a recovery-oriented system of care, Ross Cares workshop. And which is similar to what we're doing here with y'all today. It's just a kind of debrief of it, of information we thought would be helpful to the community to help support peers as they're becoming CARES. But I would always highly encourage somebody to check out our website and sign up for a Ross Cares workshop. We host around 2 to 3 per month. Some are in person in our office, some are out in the community, and some are held virtually online. And so once they attend the Ross Cares workshop, or you assist them with the knowledge that you gained from this evening, they'll submit their CARES application. And in that application, they'll have to fill out their personal information, and then they'll have a writing sample, and it has to be anywhere between a minimum of 250 words to a maximum of 500 words. They will also have to turn in 2 reference letters, and each reference letter can be the same, 250 minimum to 500 maximum. And then there's 2 special criteria for the reference letters, which is neither reference letter can be a relative. It can't be your brother-in-law, it can't be a cousin, can't be your daughter, your aunt. It cannot be any sort of relative, whether it's an in-law or blood related. And at least one person must be in recovery, and they have to identify themselves as being a person in recovery in the letter, or the application will be disqualified. And so what I like to talk about is having people write the reference letters that know you personally. We don't care about the judge and his standing in the community. We don't care about the lawyer. We don't care about the doctor or anything like that. We want people who know the people who are applying and can speak freely and easily on the peers who are applying's behalf. And so just making sure that, and also it's important to know that both references can be people in recovery, but only one has to identify as so. And if you were writing a letter and you don't put it in the first sentence, you can always add your signature if you're already a CARES. And when you add your signature at the end, you put CARES behind it, that identifies you as a person in recovery. But just because we may know you, we can't assume when reading these letters. So if David, I'm sorry for calling you out, David, but if he writes a reference letter and doesn't say in his letter that he is either one, a CARES, or that he is in recovery, and the other reference letter doesn't identify either, even though we know David is a person in recovery, we cannot move forward with that application. And so once they submit their application, we have the interview process. And it is a group interview and it's hosted virtually on Zoom. And there's normally between 2 to 3 time slots for the group interviews. And then after that is when people find out if they've been accepted to CARES. And some other important things to know about the application is that you can score as high on your writing sample as 25. And then the 2 references also can have their own score of as high as 25. And the low score for all 3 of those could be as low as 5. And so we're about to dive deep into the CARES values and more into the CARES writing sample grading criteria and reference letter criteria so that y'all will have this information. We emailed you packets yesterday of our slideshow so that you'll be able to have those on hand when you're personally walking along someone as they're journeying to become a CARES as well.
So this one is mine. Yes.
Well, hope.
Hope, yes. And so basically, these are the values that we look for in your CARES application. We believe that you'll be able to tell your story by using these values without just using bullet points that say, I provide hope by doing this. I provide recovery by doing this. We think you can just tell your story and make sure you cover these points, and you'll do a really good job of telling us why you would be a good CARES. So that's why we use these. And these are all things that are important for CARES to be able to demonstrate or to be able to talk about. And so that's why we have them here. For hope, there is not much, hope is not going to get us sober, but we won't start turning toward recovery unless we see hope. And so that's why we want you to be able to talk about hope and inspire hope in others. Some examples of how you can do that. Do you tell your story at anywhere in meetings, at the place that you recovered from? Do you do it in advocacy events like at last year's Mobilize Recovery? We want to know how you help people provide hope, and that also would include things that you don't do in a recovery context. Things like working at a homeless shelter, a food pantry, a clothes closet, places where you support recovery by helping fill in those needs. We also believe that if you sponsor people, that's an example of bringing someone hope. And so you should always give us examples. And if you have a personal example, or especially in your reference letters, if there's a personal example of how you provided hope for someone, that's a really good thing too, because it gives us an understanding of what you're talking about. But we do look for hope, and that's the first value. Haley?
All right, and the second one is recovery, which is really, really important. Y'all, I apologize so much. Okay, that ended quickly. Oh, no, it didn't. I'm using Walton and Power's office right now because my Wi-Fi was out, so I don't know what to do. I'm just going to keep going. So recovery, it's really important because without recovery, none of us would even be sitting here today. And so it is really important that we're able to talk about our recovery and explain to the person. So what we're looking for when people are writing their letters, we don't want to just know that they're in recovery. We want to know what they do for their recovery. Do they get, what's their pathway? Are they in 12 step, or do they attend faith-based? I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm gonna mute really fast.
Do you want me to talk? I'll talk a little bit about this. So we do want to know three main things: how you started your recovery, what you do to support your recovery today, and any service positions or leadership roles you've had in a recovery context. So it's great to tell us how you started. Some people with a lot of time in recovery don't ever tell us how they started because that's sort of so far in the back of their minds that they don't think it's important. But if you tell us that you came in through the legal system or went to a treatment facility or something like that, that's a great thing to let us know. We want to know what you do today because some people don't, some people are not doing a great deal in their recovery nowadays. Some are so busy that they don't have time to go to meetings or things like that. And so, or whatever your recovery pathway is. But we want to know what you do to support your recovery day today, because as we will say later, your job is not, your recovery is not your job. And we want to see that you support that. And thirdly, have you been a GSR or community secretary? You worked at the clubhouse. Are you hosting meetings, leadership positions? Because we think that that's a really good example of when you'll do other stuff in the area as well. So some people don't tell us what drug or substance they used. Some people don't tell us how many years they have in recovery. So just do a good job of discussing your recovery and bragging about it because that's so important. Don't be bashful, don't be anonymous, don't be humble. Tell us what you do and be proud of it.
Awesome, thanks.
Did you want to add anything else, Haley?
I think you got it covered, Al. It's just really important, the amount of letters that come through or applications that come through, and nobody mentions at all what they're doing for their recovery. And so it's just really important because we can't assume that these people, they may say that they were the GSR of their home group, but they don't say anything else about their recovery. So I like to assume that since they're GSR, that they're active and doing things, but we need it in black and white. And so just being able to go back into your communities and share this information to help people become a CARES and follow through on that commitment is what Al's going to talk to y'all about next.
Exactly. And I'll just say one other thing. Make sure if you started a meeting, make sure you let us know because you'll get credit all over this application if you started a meeting. It's one of the most important things that you can put down that gets our attention. So we're going to go on to commitment. Some people will think it would be really great to be a CARES. And then 3 months later, they might decide, oh, I'd rather do a CAC. And then about 3 months after that, they might decide, I'm going to go back to school. I want to become a counselor. And we want to know a time when you stuck with something and stayed with it. And the way that we give you credit for that is if we see that you put a time frame in there. So if I were giving you an example, I would say that I chaired my home group meeting on Tuesdays for the Big Book study for 18 months. And because I said how long I did it, that gives me credit for commitment. And then I also told you more about my recovery as well. So that's how you can cover many of these things with just one example. But tell us how long you did it. That's how, if you put a timestamp on it, that's how we're going to give you credit for writing about commitment in your application.
Awesome. And then wellness. Wellness is my most favorite value. And the reason that is because for a really long time, I was doing this really important work, but I was not taking care of myself. And so it's really important that when people are aspiring to become a CARES, that they have and cherish a good wellness routine. And I'll just share with you briefly, in the beginning, it just was like what my recovery was. And that's what I did. I just went to meetings. I went to my clinic. I picked up my meds. I met with my recovery coach, Then it started to transition into I started going to therapy. I started finding connections in my community. And then I found this really awesome pathway And I started exercising, y'all, and eating healthier. And it wasn't to be skinny or to look cool or anything like that, but it was because I'd realized how strong my body was. That it carried me through 17 years of active chaotic use. And I wanted to learn how to take care of my body the way it deserved to. And then, so that just spiraled my world into like a whole nother trajectory. And then I started doing things like going to bed at a decent hour, taking my medications as prescribed, spending time outside in my hammock with my dog, trying to eat my hammock while I lay in it, going camping. I love the woods. The nature is how I reconnect. And today, because of recovery, I get to go with my family. This year will be our 70th year of going back. I don't know, I can't remember. Backwoods camping. There's like no running water, no electricity, no cell phone service, no nothing. There's still an old payphone out there, but it stopped working like 10 years ago. And during that week, like that is my week to completely disconnect from the world and be filled back up. Even though like I'm continuously doing these things on a daily basis here, like it's still important for me to disconnect and just be present with Mother Nature and my family. And so it's really important. And if there is no wellness piece right now to people who are you're supporting to become a CARES, or in your own personal life, this is a call to action. What are you doing for yourself? How are you taking care of yourself? So, Al, what do
Yes.
you think about integrity?
Well, I want to say, first of all, that your job, this is where we say your job is not your recovery. So just make sure that you are supporting that, and that and you don't have to write a huge amount about it. We all love talking about wellness, but if you just put a sentence or two that shows that you're doing it, that's what we want. If you leave it out, we'll assume you're not doing it. So about integrity, this is the hardest one to describe, but we can sure see it when we read it in the application. We want to know some example that tells us that you'll do what you say you're going to do, that your word is your bond, that you do something good for people when nobody's watching. There are a lot of examples, a lot of phrases we can use, but just show us how your integrity is in your recovery. We have good examples. A good example is you go back to the place where you got sober, you established recovery to help others. Do you go back and tell your story at your treatment facility? If you're a woman who worked with defects, do you help other women with defects? We see that a lot in some of the applications that we get. So just tell us about a time when you did what was right, what was important, when you stood up for something. We got a recent example from someone who stood up to someone who he ran into, who he felt intimidated by, and that's just how he stood up for other people as well. So, but just give us a good example of that, and you'll be good. You'll get credit for that on your application as well.
Awesome. And so the last one is diversity. And sometimes it feels like it's one that people are almost afraid to come right out and call it what it is. And so we get a lot of letters where people mention diversity and they say things like they work well with people from all walks of life. Or they'll mention things like ethnicity and culture diversity, but we want specifics. We want to know that, that I myself can sit down with a person who is Muslim and who doesn't believe in Christ, who is an atheist, and can work with them for the good of recovery despite those differences, being the color of our skin, our religious beliefs, and all that. But I'm able to still walk and support them in recovery. We want to know specific details about these people who you're able to work with. And also, it does not have to be in a recovery context. If it could be in a work environment, it can be in your personal environment, it can be in your friend group. I know for me, I value diversity not only in my workplace, but also in my personal life. And when I walk into spaces today, I look around, and if everybody looks like me, I get a little worried because what's going on here? Why aren't there more people here that aren't like me? And how do we get them here? And so that's another call to action for you there. So make sure you mention specifics, whether it's specifics and nationalities or cultural differences or religious, or even in recovery. Like for me, I was on MAT, and so it's a lot of people weren't on MAT. And so I had people who sponsor me that I've never taken MAT and they don't even believe in it, but they still sponsored me because of the good of recovery. And so even looking at MAT as a piece to diversity is really good too, or being a part of being an ally to the LGBTQ community. There's so many different ways that we encounter diversity, because when we're sitting at our tables in our office, and we're as a recovery coach and as a cares, and not everybody who walks in is going to look like you. And we want to know that the person who's applying can work well with those others.
And I'll just say that the best example is someone who doesn't look or act or behave like you do. Because when you sit at the desk at an RCO, if that's the kind of job you end up with, it's going to be the whole world. It's not just going to be men with men and women with women. It's not just going to be one faith. It's not just going to be one gender expression. I wouldn't expect to get credit for supporting gay peers because I'm gay. When did I work with straight people? That's the question. And I did. But we just want to make sure that you tell us about a time you worked with someone who doesn't look like you.
All right, and so here is the grading criteria for the writing sample. And so we just discussed number one. So number one is the applicant demonstrates that they possess the values of care. So that would be them talking about, all the things that we just talked about with the CARES values, all those different examples we gave you. And then the second one is applicant possesses the leadership quality for CARES. And so we kind of mentioned a few of those. It could be in leadership in recovery. They could have started a meeting. They could have held a service commitment if they're coming from a 12-step background. And then it could be also outside of recovery. They could it could be as simple as being a key holder at Claire's in the mall. That's leadership. It takes leadership for somebody to be able to get that kind of position. It could be that you were the store manager at the BP down the road. And it can also mean that you have started your own business, or maybe that you got a promotion at your current job. And so leadership, but we want to know those specific examples. We don't want any fluff statements that say like, oh, Eric holds great leadership qualities. That will get you literally like a 1 from me and maybe a 2 from Al, because we're different. We grade differently. And so, by the way, the grading, each point on here, so there's 5 bullets here, and each of those bullets are worth a full 5 points, but they can be given as low as a 1. So like the way I like to think about it is, if you discuss what the grading criteria is and you do it well, you'll get a 5. If you do it and there could have been a little more, or maybe you forgot one thing, it could be a 4. And then if you do like mediocre, it's a 3. And if you don't do it barely at all, and you just give me like what I like to call fluff statements, or the meat without the potatoes, because I like my meat and potatoes. I don't know about y'all. I don't like one without the other. So if you give me the meat and leave off the potatoes, I'm going to give you a 2. And if you don't mention it at all, you can get a 1. And so that's how it works for all this. So for the writing sample, you can get a high score of 25 or a low score of 5. And then the applicant demonstrates or promotes recovery in their life. And so again, if you already mentioned that when you're hitting on the CARES values, then this box is already checked off. If you talked about what you did to find recovery, how long you've been in recovery, and what you're doing to support your recovery. And I always like to throw this little disclaimer out there. I do not know all the pathways to recovery. And so if you do something that for your recovery pathway that is in a non-traditional manner, that is perfectly cool with me, but just say that for my recovery, I do X, Y, and Z. So that way we're not just overlooking what your pathway is, because we don't know everything. We are not experts on multiple pathways, and we know that people can do things that we have no idea what it is. And if that's what you say supports your recovery, then more power to you. And I learned something new today. So please just be specific and encourage peers, if you're helping peers, to be specific about what pathway is theirs and what they do with that pathway. The next one is the applicant contributes to your community efforts for sustained recovery. And so this one is if you're out in your community, Tell us what you're doing. Are you showing up at local recovery events? Are you going to ARAD? Are you volunteering your time at the hospital, speaking with people who are coming in maybe from an overdose or that are in crisis? Are you going back into the hospitals and the jails and talking to people about recovery? What is it that you're doing in your community that is helping people for sustained recovery? And then number 5 is that the applicant's overall writing sample is in alignment with the mission and values of CARES. And so if we felt like in your writing sample, you did a good job of conveying that you are supportive of multiple pathways and you hit on all the CARES values, you can get 5 points for that. And so in your packets that was sent out yesterday, there was, in the back of them after the PowerPoint, there was 2 handouts in it, and one of them says Tammy's writing sample high 20s. Okay, and so if y'all just want to take like maybe 2 to 3 minutes to like skim through this just to get an idea of what a writing sample should have in it, and then we're going to kind of talk about that after in about 2 to 3 minutes when y'all are done. So it's 5:42 now, so I'll give you till about 5:45.
Haley,
Yes.
hi, this is Audrey. You sent out a packet, you emailed?
My colleague Tara did, yes. It was a packet and it had, it was a virtual packet, a PDF. It
Mhm.
came from Tara at gc4recovery.org. And it basically has the slides, the PowerPoint presentation in it, and a few other handouts.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I printed the packet, but it doesn't have sample letters with it, unless it was 2 different PDFs.
Hey, Audrey, if you put your email in the text, I'll forward it to you real quick if you need it.
Yeah, if you'll send it
In
to
the
me as
chat?
well, David, because I didn't get it either. I printed everything out.
Yeah, I didn't receive it either.
I don't have it either.
So all y'all have is the PowerPoint. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Yes.
I've got
Okay.
everything we've got. I've
Yes.
gotten everything, but I don't have any sample letters.
Well, then
No
it
samples.
possibly is the wrong thing was sent out. And so that's okay. I can share it on my screen right now.
Okay.
And what we can do is afterwards, we can email these out to y'all so that way you have a copy of it to be able to review with the people in your community that you're supporting.
So
So
for some reason, I printed it out and I didn't see it either. But when I just went back into the email, there's more pages there than printed out.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Are y'all still seeing my screen here?
I
Okay,
can.
cool.
Yes.
So I'm going to put it in presentation mode so you'll be able to see the entire thing. And for the sake of time, we probably will need to skim through this pretty quickly.
We made good time early. We may be doing okay.
Oh, sorry. Didn't even realize it was in here.
Alvin, I sent you my email.
Okay. Let me check it out.
Went to the softball game. See ya.
Who said that? Well, if you want to reach out to me when we're done, that would be great.
That
All
was Dre.
Uh, All right, so we're gonna keep moving here and just kind of review this. So I will put this on the board and I'm gonna show y'all kind of a simple way to grade a letter. So if you're working with peers and you're trying to see how good their letter is before they submit it, then they can do it like this. So I'm just gonna drag this over here and let me make this a little smaller. Sorry. So do y'all want to, do y'all want to stay on here on this page? Don't make fun of my lines. They're not straight, but I'm doing my best. Okay. Do y'all want to look at the grading criteria or do y'all want to keep it on Tammy's writing sample? Let me know.
I can read the grading criteria and y'all
Okay.
can look at that.
All right, so we're gonna skip number 1 and we'll come back to it. So I know off the top of my head that 2 is applicant possesses the leadership qualities for cares. And so in Tammy's writing sample, really quickly, y'all can give me a show of hands. Do y'all think Tammy did a good job at giving out leadership qualities? Selena has her hand raised. I see some heads nodding. So do y'all think it was worthy of her leadership skills were worthy of a 5, a 4, a 3, a 2, or a 1?
And
I
I'll
see
just
some
say
5s.
she started a facility. She worked really hard, had all those leadership positions in the fellowship that she was in. I think Tammy was amazing.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and give Tammy a 5 there for leadership.
Yeah, that's what's showing up in the chat.
Yeah, that's a good one. Y'all can drop it in the chat. All right, what about number 3? The applicant demonstrates or promotes recovery in her life. Yeah, what do y'all think about Tammy's recovery? If I can get one person to raise their virtual hand that maybe wants to give us some feedback. Nobody wants to give any feedback? Okay, well,
Well, I can
see
give
Anthony.
some.
He's got his hand raised.
I couldn't raise my hand, but this is Danielle. Could I give feedback?
Sure, Danielle, go ahead.
Well, she said she began a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, and you had previously said that that's a big one all around the board, and it shows her activeness.
Yeah. So this is where we're kind of looking to see what exactly she does for her recovery.
Okay.
She did tell us how she started recovery,
Yeah.
and she did tell us a lot of leadership positions. But I don't know if she told us what she does to support her recovery today.
Yeah. The letter talks about her being a member of Narcotics Anonymous and serving her home group, but does she go to meetings? Does she have a sponsor? Like, what does that look like for her? And that's just for this particular letter. So you can kind of see where somebody will give a little bit of information, but they won't give the whole story. And so what do we want to give Tammy for her recovery?
3.
A 3. Ooh, we got a tough one. I got 2 3s. I got more 3s.
I said 3.
All right.
I'm going to say 4 because Tammy is so good.
She is good. I see somebody gave a 4. I see a
Or
couple
I can't
4s.
read it. So that's why I'm not saying anything.
Okay. Who said that?
That
I
was
don't have that
that was
packet, so I
Fanny.
can't respond.
Gotcha. All right. And so number 4 is the applicant contributes to community efforts for sustained recovery.
So I would
5.
say
I see
in
some
this area,
5s.
Tammy's amazing.
Yes.
She started sober living places.
Yep.
She has worked with women in her job with defects. There's a lot here that she did that's really good.
All right, so Tammy got a 5 there, and so now we'll jump back up here to number 1, the CARES values. We know that she talked about recovery. We know that she talked about hope. We know that she gave us a specific timestamp right here in this second paragraph. We serviced this group of consumers for about a year. There's that time frame. Did we know that she talks about integrity because she went into the jails and she worked with DFACS and she had been recently incarcerated and she also had previous DFACS cases. What about wellness and diversity? She doesn't really talk about it, y'all.
I'm afraid Tammy's going to burn out because Tammy's doing so much and
Yeah.
doesn't tell us anything about how she takes care of herself.
So she has 4 out of 6 values. So what we would normally give her here, it depends on who's grading it, but it could be a 3 or a 4, depending on who's grading it. So I see some 2s and 3s and 2s and 4s. Let me put your hands up for what you want to give her. Alice has a 4, 3, 3, 3, 4. I see a lot of 4s. All right, we're going with a 4. Okay. Bunch of softies on the screen. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Okay. So number 5 is that the writing sample aligns with the mission and values of CARE. So we know that she had 4 out of 6 of the CARES values, which is really good. And then this last sentence right here in the bottom of her says, more importantly, the certification brings with it the recognition of someone who has the lived experience and is equipped to walk beside those who are seeking recovery. And so that definitely aligns with our mission there. So knowing that she had 4 out of 6 of the values and her writing sample aligns with our mission, I'm inclined to give her a 5. Do I have anybody who's not in agreement? All right, cool beans. So we'll give her a 5. So there we go. Tammy has 15 plus 8 is 23. So Tammy's score here is a 23 out of 25, which is pretty good. And what you need to have, you need to be scoring in the high 20s in order to be accepted into the interview phase.
So what happens is you'll have 2 people read each writing sample and we'll average our scores. And so that if we're more than 4, if we're 5 points apart, we talk with each other as to why we're that far apart. Because we don't want one person to be able to pull somebody that far up or to push them that far down. So that's how we have integrity in our program, to make sure that we get people fairly graded and then we put them in and average it out.
All right, Al.
All right, so I'm gonna see if we can make up a little time here because I know we got waylaid with some stuff. But the reference letters are pretty similar in the same way they're graded, but they're a little different. So we're going to talk about that. But first of all, I would say that if you want your counselor to write a reference for you, you might need to sign a release. If you want your sponsor to write a reference for you, you might need to ask them to not talk about themselves so much. We are not impressed when you have the judge write us if the judge doesn't know about your personal recovery. So it's best to ask someone who knows about your recovery and can write about it from the heart, because that's what we're looking for. And we've seen some really good ones that aren't very long. They don't have to be long if you cover the things we're looking for. And you should not be afraid to ask your reference to cover things that they left out. We're giving you the tools to grade your reference letter and find out what they didn't put in there and ask them to fill it back in. So here are the criteria. The first one is pretty much like the other one. We want to know about your leadership positions. Anything from GSR to shift leader at a Walmart to a CEO. We want to hear about when you've done something, been in charge of something, managed something, created something. If you start a meeting, that's great. And if you, I was going to say something else. Maybe I'll come back to it because it has slipped out of my head. But we definitely want to hear where your leadership is. For number 2, working a quality recovery program, have them talk about the same stuff. How you started your recovery, what you do to support your recovery nowadays, and any leadership positions you have. We don't grade this as hard as we do for you because you know more about your recovery than most other people do, but they should at least cover the same main points. For number 3, do you work well with diverse groups of people? So it really counts here if they talk about you're working with someone who doesn't look like you, someone from a different tradition or a fellowship or anything like that. So make sure they mention that. If you get a letter back from them and they didn't, ask them to add that. And that's a reason not to ask the judge to write your reference letter, because you might not be willing to go back to the judge and say, hey, you didn't put this in there. So just make sure that it's somebody that you're willing to give some feedback on what they wrote for you. For number 4, under hope, we want to hear about advocacy. We want to hear about stuff you do volunteering in the community. If you sponsor people or tell your story, those count for hope. It's pretty much like what you saw in the others. And then also reliability and accountability. We would like for them to say something like, you'll stand behind what you say you'll do. You'll show up for everything you said you'll show up for. We would like them to say something like, you're reliable and accountable and honest and trustworthy, you know, whatever are the right words. But we do want to hear that, and we give credit if we see that they said that about you. Same thing here. You can get 1 to 5 on each of these. And so your reference letters, the 2 reference letters graded twice and averaged together will count the same amount as your writing sample. So the writing sample counts for 50, and then these 2 references sort of each count for 25. So we're going to grade James's writing sample. So Haley, can you pull that up? There we go. So I'll tell you, it's the same thing about James as about Tammy. It's good, but it's not perfect. So you can see if you can figure out what they left out, and I'll give you 2 or 3 minutes to read it. Are we ready to go forward?
Yeah.
All righty. All right. So what did y'all think of James's letter? Can someone unmute? I see Anthony's hand. Anthony, can you unmute?
His in my opinion, his letter was very well written, but it just demonstrated how hard he works. Servicing everywhere, he had plenty of places that even on the on racism, and I didn't see anything about any self-care. I saw a lot that he worked with diverse people, so I could see why it's kind of like the high 20s.
This is a really good letter. It's one that was written by someone who we know. And it's not, so CARES, members of the CARES team cannot write references now, but this one was written by someone back in the day. So I'm just going to hit some of the high points. The very first sentence is a really great first sentence. I consider it an honor to write this reference letter for James, my friend and fellow recovering person. So right off the bat, they told us that they are in recovery themselves. We don't have to look for it. We don't have to guess. Anything you can put in your letter that is just right there where we can't miss it, that's a great way to make sure that you get credit for it. So let's look at the number one. So number one is applicant demonstrates leadership qualities as it relates to CARES. So James has a lot of leadership. Would y'all agree with that? You know, he is a pastor. He's been on the, he's done a huge amount of service in NA. He's a GSR, Group Secretary and Treasurer, Area Chair, Secretary, Activity Chair. And he is in the chair of the Committee on Racism. So I see all the fives flying into the chat right now. That is what I would give James as well for number one. I think he gets a 5. Cool. If anyone objects, if anyone wants to have an alternate opinion, don't hesitate to let us know. All right, on number 2, he is working a quality recovery program. So some people would say that he's working a quality recovery program because of his positions in NA and AA, or NA, but that's not enough. We also want to know about how he attends meetings. And if we go down and look at the bottom in that last paragraph, it says that he attends meetings regularly, he sponsors men, and continues to work with his sponsor. So that's a really good sentence and tells us what James does for his recovery today. So I think that that would give him, what would y'all give him for recovery? I see some 5s going in. That's good. Awesome. All right. So let's look at diversity. What is James's evidence for diversity? So there are a lot of places where it says that he works with the underprivileged. What's the phrase? I'm sorry.
The underdog.
The underdog.
And the underserved.
And Haley, that's kind of unspecific, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really unspecific. It's kind of that fluffy stuff. It's the meat with no potatoes.
Yeah. He is an underdog and often serves as their advocate. He is one of great faith, you know, so there's some good words in there. We do look for specifics. Now, I know some.
What word would you use in place of underdog, or what phrase would you use in place of that?
So he has dedicated his. Go ahead.
Go ahead,
so
Haley.
I would say he has dedicated to his life to serving the Hispanic community or the Latinx community or whatever community, if it's a certain race or if it's a certain religion that he advocates for, or if it's a certain entity or group of people, whatever that is, just the specific, whether it's whatever it is, you know, like for me, you know, like I said earlier, I value diversity. And so like, I don't have a problem talking about how the majority of my friends are African-American and members of the LGBTQ community. And it's just the way, and then I do have some of my friends who are white and who do look like me, but my circle of friends is extremely diverse. And so being able to speak out about that, because of all the separation and the shame and the stigma and all the stuff that's already held on to with substance use disorder, when you start talking about races and religion and different gender identities or expression, all that same shame and stigma is attached to it too. And so we want people to be speaking out on it and showing that we're welcoming here.
Yeah. So I see some hands, but I'm going to keep moving because we want to make sure that we get everything covered. Please put it in the chat if you want us to come back to it. So the only other question is the Committee on Racism, but he does not tell us the composition of the Committee on Racism. Is it all just African-American people, or is it some kind of community thing where there are many people? I'm going to give him credit for activism in this area, but I don't think I can give him a full 5 without him mentioning something specific. And I know that that can feel, and we know that this is a difficult thing for people to say. Some people don't want to put specifics in there and say that I work with this race and that race. But
Could
we
you
do.
put something like including but not limited to a certain ethnicity or
Yes, if
something?
James had said, I chaired the committee on racism, which included African Americans, Caucasians, and Hispanics.
Okay, all right.
That's a perfect response. I'm going to give him a 4, but I am open to people who want to give him a different number. I see some 3s and some 4s. All
I
right.
say 3.
4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3. It's pretty close. I'm going to break the tie. I'm going to say 4. Because James looks like a really great guy. And since I'm grading this, I'm going to give him a 4 because I think he would be a good CARES. But then I'm going to do that for everybody who I think has a really good application. So that's why we try to make sure that we're being fair. And one of my colleagues will call me on it if I'm not. So under number 4, which is hope, James is great. And I go to that final paragraph where it says, I have been able to call on James when my family needed a minister of God. He always made himself available. His reputation is one that is well respected in the community. So that just example where the reference says that James always makes himself available, and also that he sponsors men, I'm going to give him a 5.
5, yeah,
5, y'all agree?
I agree.
All right, that sounds good. And then finally, if you just keep going in that paragraph where it talks about accountability and reliability, the last sentence is, James is reliable and a man of his word. I know that I can count on James to show up early for anything that he commits to and complete all tasks with excellence. Find someone to write about you the way this person wrote about James, and you'll get in the CARES Academy. That's what I think. I'm going to give him a 5 here as well. So James scoring the high 20s, that's a 24 that we gave him. And so with those scores, I believe Tammy and James both probably will get invited to the interview to get into the CARES Academy. That's what we're going to talk about next.
It sure is. Just 1 second. Yep.
Meat
All
and
right.
potatoes.
I was gonna say there's 4 rounds in the interview, which if you've already been to an interview or you're already a CARES, you know this, but if you're watching this and you're not and you haven't, then you know that there's 4 rounds. They normally last around an hour and a half. The interview does. And then the first round, you're just simply asked to introduce yourself and tell us your best quality. Then the second and third round are both scenario questions. And then the fourth round, we ask you to tell us something to remember you by. And that is not so that you have to look cool or anything like that. It's just because normally on the interview days, y'all, we're looking at 40 to 44 different faces virtually within a 6-hour time frame. And we just need to have something to literally remember you by. And so whether it's you painted your toenails hot pink the night before, or you like to ride your motorcycle to work when the sun's out, whatever it is, something that makes you unique and stand out. Some people say they're going to bake us a cake if they're going to make it to the CARES Academy. Whatever it is, that is not bribery, by the way, but they did make it to CARES and they did bring us a cake. So, if you say something in your interview, we also hold you to it. So those are the 4 rounds. And we're actually going to go over some questions. The questions were supposed to be in the packet, but I realized that wrong packet was sent out, y'all. So there was a whole another level to the packet you got with way more handouts in it. So when we send out your certificates, I'll make sure that Alvin sends out the correct packet that has the PowerPoint slides, the sample interview, and the interview questions, okay?
And it will also have this video so that you can go back and read it and then watch our discussion of it so you can see the two together.
Yeah.
So we have a YouTube page. It has all of our webinars on it, so you'll get a link to that. And that's a great resource. Webinars for at least the last 3 or 4 years are recorded and available for you to watch.
Yeah.
All right, do you want me to ask you a question, Haley?
Sure. So this really fast before we do that, Al,
Okay.
this is the interview criteria. We're not going to kind of go over it one by one. What we're going to do is I'm going to let Al ask me an interview question. This is a mock interview, so it is not the same ones from the interview. Al's going to ask me this. I'm going to give him a response, and we're going to see what he thinks about my response. So go ahead, Al.
And let me give you an example. On the first question, you would want to answer something like your name, your time in recovery, your best quality. So I would say, my name is Al Cotton. I have 22 years in recovery. My best quality is patience, because I meditated a lot before I got sober. And so that helped me develop patience and compassion for people. So that's a good example of an answer, because it's short to the point. It's not just saying patience, but it's telling us why that relates to recovery. So that's your first question. Second question, these are all scenarios that, in this case, it's about Jake. So I'm going to read the first one. All of these questions will be about Jake in that round of the interview. And so, Haley, the first Jake question, he's a 28-year-old Hispanic man who recently completed a court-mandated substance abuse treatment program. He walks into your facility. He tells you that he used to struggle with addiction, but he's clean for a year now and attending meetings regularly. What would you say to Jake? And
Well,
what
hey,
we
Jake.
want you to do is answer the way a peer would answer, and not the way you would answer if you get nervous and fall back on what you did in your own personal program. So what would a peer do is a good question to think about. Sorry, Haley, I interrupted you.
You sure did. But I would respond by saying, hi, Jake, thanks so much for coming in today. You know, I remember a time when I had just completed RSAT, and boy, that was the hardest program that I ever had to get through. And I felt so successful once I finally completed it, and I touched back down, you know, and I got out here, and I was kind of really like at a standstill. I knew that they had told me that everything that I had learned was going to be put to the test when I got out. And it was really important for me to know and to know how to become connected to my community. So I'm really excited that you showed up. You know, here at Walton Empowers, we host a number of different resources. We can help you build resume. We have all recovery meetings. We have parenting meetings here. There's even some NA meetings here hosted, and we love to do barbecues also on the weekends. And so I'd love to sit down with you and kind of talk about what exactly it is that you're interested in doing since you just completed this program, and how I can support you in your recovery journey.
Thank you, Haley. So did she answer the question? Yes. Was she able to use her story to help him? I really liked the way she used her story to do that. I thought that was really good. Did she demonstrate effective listening and accurate empathy? She repeated the question back. She answered the question in a way that seemed like she was kind, like she was a normal human being, and like she was just there to support him for whatever he was going through. Did she demonstrate flexibility to recovery pathways and philosophies? I believe she did. She talked about different things and didn't just say, call your sponsor and work the steps. And finally, it went away. What's the last one? Did she have positive energy? Very much so. I think that's a really good thing. Did she get kicked offline? I think she might have. Oh, well. This is quite the day. We've had a lot going on. Did that make any sense? Do y'all have anything that you want to say about that? Anybody want to raise a hand?
I have kind of like a question.
Okay.
Sorry if you hear my kids in the background. So I'm still fairly new to the recovery community, and I'm worried that I'll get an interview question where it will ask me about like a pathway, or, you know, my opinion about the pathway they want to use to the recovery. Like, I don't want it to be where I would still use my story, obviously, but I don't want it to come across as like I'm not knowledgeable. Do you have any suggestions for that?
So what you want to do is make sure that you support the peer in whatever they tell you they want to do. That's the important thing, because we don't tell peers what to do. We ask questions that point them toward their own personal wisdom. Even if they asked for advice, we don't give it. We still turn it back to them so that they will be able to answer questions for us. There we go. I mean, I think that that's a good question, because that's why we say, what would a peer do when you're answering that question? Just make sure that you don't try to tell them what to do, that you offer many different pathways, and that you support them in the way that they want to be supported, and not the way you would have done it when you were doing that. Would someone want a question? I can ask someone a question if there's anyone brave enough to try to answer it on this call.
That's me, Al, Danielle.
Danielle, okay, so I'm going to ask you the next Jake question. So at your next meeting, Jake shares that he's staying with a cousin who uses drugs recreationally. Jake insists it doesn't bother him because he's focused on his recovery and it's not a parole violation for him. He mentions that he's been feeling a bit lonely, but thinks he can handle it. How would you respond to Jake, excuse me?
Okay, Jake, I'm glad that you shared this with me. I can recall throughout my recovery several instances of being around others who were still in active addiction, and it does get hard. Sometimes I had to reach out. I, of course, support you in any way, whatever it is that you want to do. And if you so choose to get out the house and make, some new meetings or anything, when you're feeling alone, or we have some more Zoom information. There are some virtual meetings that have come about from the Georgia Council, as well as safe space and things in our local community that we could look into if you chose.
Thank
Just
you, Danielle.
You're welcome.
So we do call time. That's an
Yeah.
example of how, if you keep going, we will eventually ask you to stop. So did you answer the question? Yes. Did you use your story? I really liked the way you used your story. I thought you did a really good job with that. Did you demonstrate effective listening and accurate empathy? I believe you answered the question that he was asking, and we're going in that direction. Did you demonstrate flexibility to recovery pathways and philosophies? You didn't tell him, you just have to keep going to, you just have to keep going to meetings. You didn't do anything that I thought was trying to control him or force him to go in a particular direction. And you had positive energy. I really liked it. So, Haley, are you back?
I'm back. Sorry about that, y'all. Technology.
Bless our hearts. We're doing the best we can. Let me make you a co-host again. And the thing that I like, Danielle, there's plenty of us who didn't have a safe place to stay when we were early in recovery. And you didn't tell him you got to get out of there, because for some people that doesn't make sense. But I really like the way you answered it, and I think that that was good.
Thank you, sir.
So what you'll get either is a 1 or a 2 or a 3. You'll get a 1 if you don't do the quality that we talked about. You'll get a 2 if you do it some, and you'll get a 3 if you do it well. You can score between 5 and 15 on this, and the people who get into the teens are almost always invited to the CARES Academy. But what we do is we average everything together. The interview counts 60%, and the writing samples count 40%, according to about who gets into the next CARES Academy that we're interviewing for.
Ms. Haley, did you get any of that last one, or?
For you, when you
Yes,
answered,
ma'am.
I was not here. I apologize.
She did good, Haley.
Suffering succotash.
It's recorded though, so I'll be able to go back and look at it later.
All right, shoot me an email.
I will.
Thank you.
Of course. All right, so time is 6:19. So I think we have gotten to a good point now for any questions that you all may have.
I see
I
that
know we've kind of given you a
Paramount.
lot of information in a little bit of time, and so I do apologize for that, but we just felt like it's really important that our CARES community and our allies have this information when supporting peers coming through the CARES Academy. and also for those who are not yet CARES.
And I hope you can see how what we're looking for is that you're already doing stuff that peers do back home in your life before you become a CARES, because we think the people who are already doing the stuff are the ones who will do it when they become CARES as well. That's why we look for your leadership. That's why we look for your recovery. That's why we look for your diversity. Those are the things that we value, and we know if you're already doing them, then you'll make a great CARES and go forward.
Hello, Alvin and Haley, I have a question.
Yes,
Amanda.
go ahead, Amanda.
Hello. So I interviewed for the last CARES Academy, and I was wondering, do you guys offer any mock interviews in person? I'm looking forward to applying for CARES 65.
Do we offer interviews in person? Is that the question?
Like mentoring for the interview process.
Yes, we do. So you're able to email a member of the CARES team and ask them for feedback on your interview, and we will provide written feedback for you. And if you reapply and you're invited to attend another interview, you can also reach back out to us then and ask us to schedule you some interview prep, which we'll do over Zoom. We'll answer a few questions with you, and we'll give you some feedback for the interview.
Thank you. Also, one more question.
Mm-hmm.
I was already invited for an interview. The same information that I submitted for CARES 63, would that be acceptable for the CARES 65?
I would highly encourage you to reach out to a member of the CARES team and ask them for feedback before resubmitting, because sometimes if you were invited to an interview, unless you scored 25s all the way across the board on your writing sample and your reference letters, then there's always room for improvement. And so just because you were invited to one interview does not mean you will be invited to the other interview, depending on how well the other scores do in the application process.
Thank you. Well understood. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Those are great questions. Anybody else?
Yes, Haley. When is
Yes.
the next open for the CARES?
So CARES Academy 65 opens on Monday, June 3rd at 8 a.m. And this is just a general CARES Academy, and it's open to anybody who has 2 years of recovery and a high school diploma or GED.
There's Artis. You got your hand up, Artis.
Hey, Artis, what's up?
Hello, everyone. How are you? I just want to ask the question, what's the advantage of going to the CARES workshop?
So it's a little bit about what we went through today. It's basically this, but we're not rushed with an hour and a half time frame, and we dive a little bit deeper. We do some dyads in the Ross CARES workshop, and we spend a lot more time on the interview and the application process.
Thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
the reason to do it is so that you improve your application to get into the CARES Academy. You know, we see a huge difference in the people who have been to a ROSC and the ones who haven't.
That's right.
Come to a ROSC workshop, and they're lots of fun. I think we do a great job of making these really enjoyable, and they'll help you understand more about what peers do, and will improve your application at the same time.
Can you do more than one ROSC workshop?
Yes, you sure can.
Macy Broussard, your hand is up.
Hey, yes, my question is, I'm a stay-at-home mom for over a year, and I homeschool my kids. So as far as leadership, I haven't had an actual paying job in over a year. Would there be anything that would translate from leadership as far as being a homeschool mom to the application?
I mean, if you personally ask me, I think it takes a certain kind of leadership to be able to homeschool children.
Yeah, it takes a lot of patience.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in itself, if you think about a principal of a school, that is leadership. To me personally, but I don't know how anybody else scoring an application would look at that, but I know that I would take that into consideration. But even in past jobs, it doesn't have to be at your current job, any past job that you've ever had as well, or anything that you do in your recovery that's deemed leadership.
Okay.
Denise Ridgway, your hand is up.
Yeah, hi, everybody. Once again, Alvin, thank you. And thank you, Haley, so very much for hosting this platform. And I just want to add that I truly appreciate this training. I was also with the Roth training I believe on Tuesday. And what I did, I applied for CARES before even coming to the webinars or the training. And I didn't pass, to make it to the next level, but I really think that I should have placed these workshops first and to get this information and how to do the interviews and what to put in these letters before applying. Not to say that I would get in, definitely, but I think my chances would be a little better now that I have this information. I went in blindly, so I appreciate it. Do the workshops first and then apply, because now I have a better understanding of what you're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. It took me 3 times of applying and not getting in before I finally attended a ROSC. So, but hey, I attended a ROSC CARES workshop, and guess what happened after that, y'all? I got in to CARES, and so so it is
Audrey.
there. However you get through the ROS, just get there. Get your peers that you're serving in your community. Get the people you're working with who aren't yet CARES, that want to be CARES. Get them to a ROS. And we send out these emails pretty regularly about signing up for the ROS registration. We're preparing right now to release the dates for July, August, and September, but we do have some ROS that we're going to be doing down in the Southeast Georgia area. We got one coming up on June 12th, and that is going to be at, I just lost my train of thought. Is that going to be at Freedom Through
Circle of, yeah, that's it.
Circle of Recovery in Savannah, Georgia.
On the 12th, and then
On the
Freedom Through
12th.
Recovery on the 13th. So we got 2. We're going to be in Savannah on the 12th, and we're going to be in Statesboro on the 13th. And so if y'all have anybody, if any of y'all are in that area and y'all know of some people that could benefit from attending an in-person ROS CARES workshop, please go on our website and have them sign up for the registration. It's free. Audrey?
Yes, hi. Thank you, Haley. I signed up for June 4th for the Ross workshop.
Yes.
And then I heard someone say June 3rd.
No, there's a virtual ROS workshop on June 4th. And so you will receive email with your handouts and your Zoom link to the ROS about a week in advance for that ROS workshop. Okay. That's virtual on June 4th. Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Hey, Selena, what's going on? You're welcome, Audrey.
Hey, I have a friend here in Brunswick who I think might do it online, but do y'all offer feedback for them for people that want to apply if they haven't attended an online or an in-person ROSC?
We always apply feedback, especially to those who attend a ROS CARES workshop. Only thing is that we have a boundary with is like, if it's the last 7 days that our application is open and we're in crunch time trying to grade applications, because believe it or not, y'all, everybody waits to the last couple of days to submit their application. So we're in crunch time then. So as long as they submit it before the last 7 days of the application is open, we always will be glad to provide feedback.
I'd also like to say that one of the things that you left out about the ROSC in person is all the wonderful people you meet.
That's right. Yeah.
All of the other people that want to be a CARES, and it's a really diverse, wonderful group of people.
It sure is. Yeah. And y'all know connection is the opposite of addiction. And so sometimes a ROSC workshop is the first point of entry for people figuring out what that looks like. So.
And since we're going to be down in Savannah and Statesboro, your friends should just come on over. I know you're down in that area too.
Yeah.
Brunswick.
All right, Danielle, you're going to be our last question, and then we're going to have to log off for the evening.
Thank you. You said it earlier. How many CEUs, how many continuing education units? I mean, is this
These
webinar?
Third Thursday webinars are an hour and a half long, and so they are 1.5 CEUs.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
And how many total do we need again?
You will need 12. Go
12.
ahead, Al. This is your thing. So
That's my area. So you need 12 CEUs every year, and 6 of them have to come from a CARES Connect. So you can attend some of our longer trainings. You can attend 2 Connects if you want, or you can do 4 webinars. And if you do 4 webinars, those are all free. And that's all you need to add to your Connect so that you're good for next year.
And when is the next CARES Connect, Alvin? And is it a virtual? Or do
We
you know?
would have been.
August 2nd. Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Go ahead.
August 2nd is the next CARES Connect. It's going to be in Dunwoody, Georgia at the North Atlanta Church of Christ from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And that topic is going to be on peer supervision. And then the following CARES Connect will be November 1st in Americus, Georgia. We'll have 2 different presenters, so the day will be split in half. One will be on uncovering bias, and the other half of the training will be on the supporting LGBTQ peers in recovery. And
How
so
do you
there's
sign up for those? I'm
virtual.
sorry. I forgot
sorry?
how to sign up for those.
We sent out an email actually this morning. I believe it went out at 9 a.m. That's how you register for those. We sent out an email, and it's coming from Tara at GC4 Recovery. She's our training and outreach coordinator. So anytime you're looking for an email concerning training or any kind of outreach work, you can always search her name, Tara Jackson, in your email, and all her emails that come to you will come up.
Thank you.
You're
All
welcome.
right, I think that's it. It's 6:31. Thank you all for coming tonight. This was
Thank
a
y'all very
so
much.
much.
really
We
fun.
enjoyed it. We'll see
Thank
you all
you.
soon. Have a
Thank you
good
so much.
evening.
Thank you. So you'll get your certificate in about a week. It'll come from me. You can search for Alvin in your inbox and check it next Friday, and it should be there.
Thank y'all.
Okay. I didn't get anything from Clara this morning.
Oh, I'm sorry, Audrey.
Oh, Audrey, you'll only get that if you're a CARES. The only
Well,
way you'll get the CARES Connect is if you're a CARES.
All right. Because I don't see my. Okay.